Hey, I'm Cameron.
And I'm Jordan.
Let's crash the mood. Alright, today we're going to be having a ethics debate about superheroes.
Because why the fuck not? Alright, so, over the years, comic books, while they are their own thing, and some people would count them as escapism, some people count them as this, and count them as that. They can be a lot of things for a lot of people. It really does depend on the reader. But one thing's for damn sure. On some level, whether it's a real large one or a real small one, they've always been a reflection of our time. A reflection of what we think. And who we are is a result of where we've been as a society. So naturally, you're going to have a lot of influence go into it. And eventually, you're going to have different morals expressed in different times and different things associated with different heroes, different comic book companies, different publishers. Huh? And creators.
And writers.
And writers and all that jazz. People have different morals. That's just the thing. So let's see what they bring to the table for different characters as a whole. We won't be focusing so much on the publisher themselves, but we'll be delving more into the universe. What can we say about the heroes? What can we say about the villains? What can we say about what's really good, what's really bad, and anything in between?
Yeah, and it's not going to be a formal thing. It's going to be more loose. So we're not going to examine Superman from the Marxist standpoint.
And we won't be necessarily saying, why that villain, he's part of this dark triad, you see. By the way, if you didn't know, there's a thing in psychology called the dark triad. And be like, yeah, he's narcissistic, Machiavellian, and a psychopath. So we won't be doing stuff like that, but we will be talking about things of that nature. Just like not in official terms.
Yeah, like Batman and Superman's pseudo-homoerotic relationship.
Yeah.
Okay, not that.
Not that in particular, but things that might surround things like that. Like, what's the morals behind this and that? Why would this person consider that to be wrong?
And at the end of the day, there's some controversy. There's debates within superhero comics where superheroes face other superheroes. And we'll get into who's right.
We'll get into that.
Because we're right and everyone else is wrong.
Pretty much. Except for, when we disagree and then I'm right. But seriously, for the most part, we do agree on some things, but it'd be worth talking back and forth. And then some things we might not agree on, but we're normally pretty good about that. And we're both stay at our sides about that sort of stuff. And again, if we are in agreement with something, that means everyone else is wrong. Come on, how do you not know that? Alright, so, where do we even start with that? What do you think? Let's go.
Why not the big question? The one that everyone debates. Should superheroes kill?
Oh, do you want to take the lead on that one, or shall I?
I think you should start.
Oh, yeah, of course. I think that's tricky. It depends, in my eyes, what the actual superhero counts themselves. I guess, that sounds weird, doesn't it? But I'll explain. Alright, right? So if a superhero pictures himself as this good person that follows the law and wants to help people and do this, if they count themselves as, let's say, the Superman kind of superhero, then they probably should not kill by their own standards. And at the same time, if they're a little loose with it and they're just trying to save people and they're kind of willing to do some messed up stuff, then yeah, sure, why not? And it's not really that simple either. Because, take your own personal ethics into account. Personally, I think if you're going to get super involved and you want to say, oh, okay, I want to make this world very, very different, then perhaps in some situations you should. Like, if you knew that someone was going to keep on getting out of prison and killing hundreds upon hundreds, maybe even thousands, and turning into millions of people. Because then on some level, I feel like you are responsible. But there are a lot of counterpoints to that. It's not an easy thing to defend, but that is how I view it. Where do you stand?
I think superheroes should only kill people only when the lethal option... only when it's an immediate circumstance of self-defense or defense of others, and the lethal option is the only option. And I think that because, essentially, once you start killing people...
Slippery slope?
Well, it's beyond slippery slope argument. You've gone down the slope. You essentially become the justice system. When you're just arresting criminals, you're aiding the justice system. You're aiding society. But once you start killing people, you're usurping society. You're making the judgments for society itself. And to your point, like, you think that superheroes should be held responsible if they fail to kill somebody that they know is going to be released from jail repeatedly. Well, I disagree, because it's a society's decision to whether they want someone to be executed or not. And once someone decides to take the decision into their hands and kill a criminal, when they know society's decision is not to execute that criminal, then they essentially have usurped society's decision. And if society has to make the decision for themselves. And I think it's the pinnacle of arrogance to kill somebody when society has decided against it.
Well,
Oh, did I have you stumped?
No, of course you don't have me stumped. I'm thinking of ways to properly put you on your place on this issue. Let me begin. Okay, so you said you don't think it's society's choice in some of these cases and all that, and okay, that's fine, that's good. But I think there are some cases where society would actually prefer to see some of these people get taken out, and some of the superheroes still don't do it. And also, it really depends on what type of superhero you are in the first place. Yeah, there are some superheroes that are appointed by the government. Some that are, proponents of the people and all that good stuff. But you gotta remember, there are a lot of superheroes who are vigilante. They already crossed that line. They weren't elected by the people to even aid in the assistance of the justice system, and the justice system didn't actually ask a good portion of them to get involved. And when they do things like let someone go that is going to kill a lot of people, are they really bettering society? And in the comic book world, a lot of people, they're not bettering society. They're supporting an infinite loop, necessitating their own existence.
Okay, well, the thing is, I don't consider people that, like, vigilantes, you're referring to people like the Punisher that go around killing criminals. And I don't consider those people superheroes.
Okay, I would like to point out, those are not the only type of vigilantes. Superman is a vigilante, whether you want to count him or not. Batman is too.
Okay, yes, by the technical definition, they are vigilantes.
Yes.
But vigilantes in spirit, no.
But vigilantes, a vigilante is always a vigilante.
Yeah, okay. But what I'm saying is, essentially, the government has failed the people. And so the people have to, in this case, they have to rise up in their own defense because the government has failed in its duties to protect the people. And so, no, they weren't elected, but there are certain circumstances where people need to stand up and protect other people. And so say like someone's blowing something up. You can't stand around and elect somebody to save the world. Sometimes people just need to come in and save the world.
And sometimes they just have to kill some minutes before they kill a lot more.
No, okay, but
how is it different? Explain.
The difference is like in the immediate case where a villain's going to hurt other people, then yes, you should kill them. But in the case where you're sending them to prison, well, that's not your decision. If society actually wanted those villains dead, then they would elect officials that would make those villains dead. They would change the laws to kill those villains. They would elect judges and district attorneys who sought the death penalty. They would elect mayors and governors and presidents that sought to change the laws of the land to execute these supervillains. But they made the conscious decision not to do that. And so to override the will of the people is undemocratic.
Well, I will say it is undemocratic to undermine the will of the people. I admit that I do. I maintain that. Okay, wait, just give me a second.
Yeah.
Because I had a way that I was going with this, and then I
This is kind of why I hate debates, because just because someone says something the loudest or the most often,
it doesn't make it right.
It doesn't make you right. And that's kind of why I prefer paper debates in some cases.
Yeah. Because I'm not trying to do the whole loudest thing. I was just like, there was a legitimate way I wanted to go about that.
Well, I'm saying that for my case too.
Yeah.
It's just because I said a long string of sentences doesn't make me right. And I managed to do it without stuttering doesn't make me right.
Yes. Okay, so just give me a second because I want to pick up where you...
Well, that's why I was talking,
yeah.
so you could think of it, but you interrupted me.
Well, no. Yeah, I know. It's because... Okay. So summarize what you briefly said real quick because I need to recapture that.
Okay, me summarize? Okay.
Yes. What you were saying. Right?
Okay, well, I was saying that... Alright. Okay, well, I was essentially saying that, that if society... Okay, in the certain cases of these criminals repeatedly breaking out of prison, like Joker breaking out from an insane asylum, that if the society want these criminal supervillains dead, then they would elect officials and they would change laws and they would get district attorneys, that kind of thing, and society would rise up and protest and different stuff in order to execute these villains. Okay,
I got you. Now I see where I wanted to go with that. That would work ideally in a perfect system in a perfect government. But here, I think, okay, right? And even in our own government, we don't have perfect control. Like, we have a democracy, but it's really, like, more of a representative republic. We don't get that direct say, neither do they. And I feel like in the cases of, like, the Joker and criminals like that, there's probably a lot of people out there that do want them dead. And even if they want to change things, that doesn't mean they can. And maybe someone does need to stand up and say, fuck it, people like the Joker need to die. Okay. Why does that make them arrogant? What if it was an immediate situation where the Joker was killing a lot of people? Okay, well, are they really unjust if they killed Joker in that situation? Okay, finally in what he did.
I specifically said in the immediate situation where people's lives are directly threatened. Like, say he's got like a bomb and it's going to go off. Okay. In that case, of course it's okay to kill him. Police do that all the time with criminals and everything. Even civilians, you're allowed to kill someone in self-defense. That's just a natural thing. And society can't function without that kind of principle. But I'm saying that if killing supervillains was such a big priority, why aren't people in the streets protesting in these universes?
We both know those universes are really flawed.
All right, but then it's not that much of a priority for the universe.
That doesn't mean it's not a priority. That just means it's fucked up beyond belief.
I'm just taking like the free market view. Like if they really want something done, they would get something done, but they don't.
I think they do want to get something done, but just maybe not bad enough that they probably should. So I mean, I agree with the premise of that. They don't really want it. They want it, but they don't. I can get with that.
All right.
Okay, so, I mean, I'm always gonna probably be of that whole, I do think they should kill him. And maybe not like, saying, oh yeah, I see Joker in the street, let's shank that bitch. Like, maybe not like that, but if someone did do that, I don't think it'd be the worst thing in the world, and I think the world would get over it. But, okay, I can get with some of what you're saying. Because it doesn't seem like we're completely on a different page. Like, you said you don't mind if it was an immediate thing, and I think that's what I'm more upset about. Not just that, well, not upset, because we're not actually upset about it. It was a poor choice of words. But, I mean, the thing that gets me most about those situations would be those points where some hero won't kill them, and it's like some battle that decides the universe, and this person just threatened the universe, they're about to do something bad, and you don't put the finishing blow because of your conscience. Yeah, that irritates me.
Yeah, that I think you are to blame.
Because, okay, I think that was one of the, talking about like we do now actually sells a lot of the things that we've been talking about in the past, because I don't think we actually talked like this about it. Because my thing, and I can see why it would come off to you this way, is my thing probably comes off as, oh, they just kill him no matter what. They just say, fuck it, just kill him. Absolutely. If they get out, just kill him. Or they should go to prison and kill him. That's not what I was trying to get out. And I think what I got from you, and it wasn't what you were trying to get out either, is, oh, no, they should never kill him. It's not their choice. It's not their place. Never, ever, ever. And that's not what you were saying.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like a lot of things. It's a gray area where it depends on the circumstances.
And I think even though we've been like going on about both of those sides, what we really both believe is more about that gray area. It's that situation where you have superhero versus supervillain, and the superhero can stop the supervillain, but they choose not to do it in a lethal way, even though in some cases that might have been the best option, because there's some options where they might have stopped them and still a lot of people got damaged while they were stopping them, or a lot of people got injured and lives radically changed.
Okay, so let's lead this into something like do you think there is a difference between superheroes and like regular street vigilantes? Like say like we have like where like say like they see a criminal, like they see someone sees a criminal on the street and they beat them, or they patrol their streets or something, and like, do you think there's a difference between the street, like, vigilante and, like, Batman? Do you think there's a difference between, like, Batman and Superman? Or, like, is there somewhere where, like, is there a point where you transform from just a vigilante that should be arrested into a actual superhero?
Okay. We could tell about that because we covered I think our biggest dispute.
Yeah,
which we actually probably came to a conclusion here, which is we have some different views here and there, but our essence is the same. With this, let's see. Okay, so my thing is so compared to real world vigilantes, I mean, I think yes and no. It's tricky to say. I mean, yes, because essentially they are doing the same things, and no, because I feel like it's handled differently in those universes. And those universes, it's way more common, and it's way more common. And in our world, not so much. Most people probably don't want to get hurt on their own, and they probably keep on going about their business. And I think it'd be really rare for someone to step up. And I think you do get the whole mixed feelings about that in both cases, although I think more mixed in those worlds, because in those worlds, right, those universes, you have people with superpowers, you have people without, and even though Batman doesn't have any superpowers, he has a whole bunch of shit that's just bad gadgets that can do some serious damage if you're not careful. And I think people they're put on that status, they are either going to be insanely glorified by people, or people will fear them, and if they don't fear them, it'll be a end or hate thing. And in our world, I don't think someone would just hate most types of situations that would lead to someone being a vigilante, because I think in our cases here, it'd be more like that whole immediate thing, as opposed to some people just going around. Because I think if most people would go around in our world, most people would get caught, if they were to do Batman or Superman sort of actions,
I think the key word is super.
Yes.
In that the difference between a superhero and a vigilante is, I guess, a few things: dedication, ability, and ethics. A superhero has a clear moral code, a line that they won't cross. I think, in my opinion, they won't they're not going to kill somebody, just a criminal, some guy just because he robbed a store or something. They're not going to beat him to death just because they broke into a house or anything. They're going to tie him up and call the police and keep it simple. And so they have an ethical code that they follow, and they're very professional about it. And I think it's the key thing. They're professionals. They dedicate their entire essence to it. Batman went around the world training. He learned all these martial arts. He perfected his body to Olympic athlete level. He studied all the sciences. He took it to the next level. He created these gadgets. He dedicated his fortune to it. You can't. He's better at his job than most police forces are.
Yeah.
And so you can't compare a vigilante to him in that respect.
No, it's very different.
And so the key thing with abilities, if you're Superman, you don't need the years of training. You can make up for that with your super strength and super hearing. You don't need the gadgets. You have your lasers and stuff. And so you can achieve the superhero status as long as you have the ethical code, the professionalism, and the dedication. So that's what separates a vigilante from a superhero.
Okay. See that?
Yeah, I don't see anybody achieving all those things at once in our lifetime.
No, I don't think it just happens that way. Because I really do think that most cases of vigilantism, I must have came out wrong. But anyway, in real life, when someone becomes a vigilante, I think for the most part, it really is an immediate thing. You don't really see people actively being a vigilante, or else they would have been most of them would have been caught. I think. But in the superhero comics, I think it mostly is that definition, but I do think there is a slight difference within that universe. A slight. In some cases, like Superman and Batman, you brought it up, before, at the beginning when we were talking about those questions. Is there a difference between that sort of thing? Okay, I think Batman's brand of being a superhero is more it's closer to being more vigilante. Because, Superman several times has operated with the government, making it a little bit more official in his part. So I think there is a difference between that, but at the same time, see, it's tricky when you want to talk heroes and vigilante. Because in real life, right, there might be someone where they help someone who is getting attacked, right? Most people aren't going to call them a vigilante, they're going to call them a hero.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about vigilante, we're talking about someone who's actively seeking it out.
Yeah.
Actively seeking out criminals and crime.
Yeah, I think that's more accurate. And I do think Batman fits that a lot closer, but I see like the way you define it. It does make it a little tricky because like Superman doesn't always operate in the law, but I think most people would count him as a superhero, and Batman does his thing. So same.
Well, I think like they've got so many years that they're professional about it.
Yeah. So it is more like a job for them. That's what you're considering here.
Yeah, well, it's like they're professionals. They're as good or better than the police. They're filling a need. Like obviously I don't think you're a superhero if you're patrolling like a country club or anything. Even if you have the powers and dedication.
Yeah.
It's just unnecessary, and I think that just turns you into vigilante. I think that's another thing I forgot to include. There needs to be a need for it. If you're just some jerk that's patrolling for no reason, then you're just an asshole vigilante. You're just an asshole. But I think there's specific it's been in comics like the most recent I think would be the Superhero Registration Act in Civil War in the Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we've talked about this where I think a lot of people rooted for Captain America's side, but I was personally rooting for Iron Man. Well, except for I thought Iron Man was right, but he went about it the wrong way.
Yeah, because Iron Man's a dick, and he went about it in a dickish fashion. Granted, Captain America is no better. He may have been worse, actually.
Okay, I actually should sum it up for people that don't know what the Marvel Civil War was about. Essentially, after during a superhero like reality TV show, mutant accidentally caused an explosion and killed a bunch of people, including a lot of school children. And as a result of that, the government passed the Superhero Registration Act, which required anyone operating as a superhero to register with the government and be held accountable for their actions. Now, Captain America disagreed with the act, and so did half the Marvel heroes, and the other half thought it would be a good change to bring more professional thing with the. And so Captain America thought it was a violation of freedom and privacy and would put a lot of people in danger because there's a trope of superhero comics that once the villain finds out your true identity, your family gets attacked. And we'll get to it.
Oh, hell yeah, we will. There's going to be some shit about that.
And so essentially Captain America leads the anti-registration side. Iron Man leads the pro-registration side. There's a war between the superheroes. Eventually it ends with Captain America winning. Iron Man winning. But later down the line, the Superhero Registration Act gets repealed once Captain America becomes head of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all this other stuff happens. Dark Reign and a bunch of other stuff. But anyway,
Dark Reign!
But anyway. But anyway, that's the gist of the plot. What did you want to say?
About which part?
Okay, I'll start. Well, essentially, did you want to start?
Oh, what?
Yeah, I just finished summing up.
Okay.
Civil War.
Yeah.
What do you want to say about it?
Alright. Two major things.
Oh, yeah, real quick. The reason I think a lot of people side with Captain America is because Iron Man basically acts like a dictator in Civil War.
He really does.
And it was supposed to be like a commentary about this post-9/11 security state and them and all that, but essentially Iron Man does a bunch of sneaky stuff, he's illegal prisons, kind of like Guantanamo Bay.
And there you go, Iron Man.
And he also creates an evil clone of Thor and a bunch of stuff. And so a lot of this picking on the sides of Civil War is actually about that instead of the actual topic.
And I get that, honestly, because it doesn't, in my opinion, right? While, morals, they're fluid, right? There's something that, you want to say it is right or wrong, but really, it's a matter of perception. But there are some things that are generally held to be right or generally held to be wrong. That being said, I think sometimes it isn't just what you do, it's how you do it. And he did that. Even if it was a right, or what most people would consider right, he fucked it up by doing it that way. I think that fucked it up for a lot of other people, ultimately. That being said, just two things real quick. One, Dark Reign, really? What were they thinking? Norman Osborn? Come on.
Let's keep going.
Is a hero, they thought? Dumbasses. Okay, my other thing, real quick, maybe we'll get into it a little bit more later, is the whole wanting to preserve their secret identities because of the families. How many times in these stories do families and friends get threatened any fucking way, even though the supervillain doesn't learn their identity? And how much more motivated is a villain to go and find that identity, usually through some really destructive meaning that will just like ruin more people's lives? I think that part, even if their intentions turn out to be really good, it's a shitty and not well thought out thing. Most people are going to get hurt in these universes that are close to these people. And if not directly by the villains themselves, by the heroes from trying to keep that secret. But I think, yeah, you put your friends and your family in danger when you do something like that.
Another counterpoint to that is...
Do the violent thing, yeah.
Yeah, well, anyway, another counterpoint to that is, police and attorneys that prosecute these supervillains, their identities are out there.
Yeah,
the police
it's like they're fucked. Their families and friends are in danger.
So, like, what makes you think you're more special than the cops and the lawyers and all that stuff?
Yeah, it's like, come on. These are people that you're supposed to be fighting for, and they're bravely putting themselves and their families at risk, and you can't be bothered to do the same because you think that, my family's gonna be in danger. It's like, quit being a dick. They're gonna be in danger if you're in that line of work, and so are the other people. At least they have the guts to stand up about it. What are you doing with your life?
Okay, my big thing with the Superhero Registration Act is like, nowhere in the Constitution does it say you have the right to be a fucking superhero. I'm not sure where Captain America got this bullshit from, but it's like, okay, there's no natural God-given right to keep your like a secret identity when you're fighting crime. Yeah, there's like a history of having like anonymous free speech and stuff, but this isn't free speech. This is things where you're fighting people and you're dealing with bombs and the fate of the world, and people need to be held accountable for their actions. When you screw up, we need to know your identity. If Spider-Man accidentally kills somebody, you know what? The family has the right to hold him accountable for his actions.
Spider-Man accidentally kills someone every week. He should be held accountable by now. But he's like probably, I feel, okay, there's a lot of comic book characters, and yes, it could be debated, but I think he's one of the worst people with that. He really is. He's irresponsible.
What do you mean kills people accidentally?
I was exaggerating.
Okay, well...
for emphasis. Come on, you knew what I was doing.
The Gwen Stacy thing he wouldn't be held accountable for, because he had no choice. But I don't think, other than that, something like the inciting incident of the Civil War where the guy blew up like the bus is full of school children. You need to know people's identities for that.
Yeah, and again, seriously, man.
What?
You knew what I was doing. It wasn't like a hardcore
Okay.
But, my thing is with the Spider-Man, I mean, I just get annoyed with him because all it talks about responsibility and how, with great power comes great responsibility. It's like, he's one of the most irresponsible people I meet. I mean, man. No,
you mean Spider-Man?
No, you know what I meant. One of the most irresponsible characters in comics with that. And
we probably should have talked about this if you met Spider-Man.
God. Oh, you see, there's this one time I tripped and I fell and I caught myself, but I caught myself on a web. He said that counted as my just one. I said, dude, I think I can get another one. That didn't count. I already saved himself. But, I used up that time. And so, that's the one time I met Spider-Man. True story. But no, seriously, back to the point though. Spider-Man routinely endangers many people's lives, his family especially, and his friends, the people he cares about, this and that, on a regular basis, and yet he never reveals who he is to them. He alienates them, he puts a lot of people in danger, people get hurt because of him, and he never once reveals himself, like, in a way that actually matters, in my opinion.
Okay, the other thing is, like, alright, now, if people in the real world had superpowers, like, these superpowers include, like, the ability to blow up entire cities, or stuff, or, like, kill the president with just a thought, we would want them to those powers to be registered. We would want to know what people were capable of. Because if we don't know, people are going to die. A lot of people are going to die. And like this whole idea that you're allowed to hide that and all that stuff, that's bullshit. we're talking about, like, it's not just about you. The lives of all these other people are at stake. And there's certain things you can keep private because they're not going to affect other people. Like, I don't care if you're gay or not because it's not going to hurt me. But if you have the power to blow up an entire city, I have the right to know that.
Yeah, and so here's my thing, right? I expect that sort of behavior from a supervillain. And honestly, in most cases, most supervillains, given how they're depicted, okay, you'd fucking expect that. That's fine. Like, I have no qualms about a supervillain taking that viewpoint. But when you say that you're a superhero and you protect the people, you owe that to them. The people that you protect to let them know what you're capable of. And it's, in many of these stories, right? They get brainwashed, right? Or their powers go out of control, or something just happens where bad things happen, intentionally or not. And in times where you're not intentionally, it's like, it's bad. I think it would help if people knew, had some kind of idea, or if you did do some major fuck up, it's like, who's gonna really stop you? Yeah, other superheroes might talk to you about it, but it's like, really? No one's gonna no one's gonna do anything to you in court, or anything like that, or, people won't, and they might hate your superhero identity, but they might not necessarily hate the person you are, so you get to escape that. And that's not fucking fair.
Well, see, the thing is, I think, in the Civil War, Iron Man was right in principle, but he was wrong in execution.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the only reason I think, I felt like they actually didn't give an equal side, equal fair. It wasn't fair to both sides of the debate of whether. And so,
well, okay, right with that, I wasn't expecting them to, honestly, and I know why. It's like, if they gave a more fair discussion about that, yeah, you could see some definite counterpoints on Captain America's side of the deal. But if you had a more fair and civilized debate about this, you couldn't have heroes fighting heroes. They needed to have someone that they could say is the villain of the story. Someone that they could say is the hero of the story.
Okay, another thing. How arrogant is it to you passed a law? Fuck your laws. Fuck your laws, you petty little people. We don't bow down to you. We are above your laws because we're superheroes. It's like, this was a democratic process. And you can just decide what laws you disregard or not. You're not Captain America. It's like you're Captain, Banana Republic dictator.
Hey, didn't you know Americans don't give a damn about democracy? Come on. But I think what it was before all this started, Captain America was listening to America Fuck Yeah on his iPod. It just really got to him, and he kind of went off about that.
Yeah, we have to mention that once every podcast.
Oh, yeah, America Fuck Yeah.
And, so yeah, I think that's enough about Civil War. But.
Yeah, because, if we talk about this for too long, we'll start picking apart everything that's wrong with it, and that can go on for days.
Yeah, for the future, probably shouldn't bring this plot up too often because then we start picking up the scabs the whole idea of a superhero. It's like, wait, why wouldn't society? It just reminds you the whole idea of a superhero is fiction. So just don't bring it up because it takes us out of the story.
Yeah, and it takes you to some dark places, and not the good, fun dark places where you're like, damn, that's interesting, but just some bitterness, some anger, because what came as a result of Civil War. Right. We're not going to talk about that today, but it was in my mind. Yeah, let's go on.
Alright, so, let's talk about, I think this is an interesting topic, mutants in the Marvel Universe.
What mutants?
Okay, there's a couple things. There's a couple things we can talk about with this. Number one is, if the mutants are being discriminated against in the Marvel Universe, why aren't all the other superheroes doing anything about it?
Because they're assholes.
Yeah. Number two.
Yeah.
Magneto, the vigilante. Is he actually a good guy?
Not a goddamn chance. He has good intentions often, but his execution, I think, makes him more villainous than anything, no matter how much time they want to, redo whether he's good or bad. But anyway, go on. We're talking about the points.
Okay, so let's start with number one.
Yeah.
how responsible should the other superheroes feel for like the X-Men and the mutants' plight? Like, how responsible should they be for like not doing anything, or doing very little when they do?
I think that very much depends. It's like it depends on what stance you take on the issue. It's like at least for the superheroes, because if they are really talking about like they want to do the greater good, then perhaps they should. If they're more focused on specific things, then maybe not.
You mean like Double Doe fighting Street Time?
Stuff like that.
Shouldn't worry about that.
Yeah, it depends on what they want to do as a hero. But now on the outside of it, though, I think that's very different. I personally think they should have some responsibility to that because of what they say they uphold. Whether they have a different mission in mind, I think that like a lot of those mutants, they can help in most people's cases. And most heroes, right? At least how we consider them, they're not like supposed to be hateful people. They want to like decrease that. And I think with all the problems with mutants, they could do something to help. But I also think on some level, right, some of them probably think they have to make it worse by interfering.
Okay, there's a couple things with this. Like, first, there's a good reason probably why they don't get involved in the external reason from the universe, which is editorial reasons.
Yep.
Because essentially, comics have their own little fiefdoms. So the X-Men universe is like its own fiefdom. And it only tends to interact with, like, the Avengers fiefdom and crossovers and things like that. And so these other heroes don't tend to interact with mutants unless it's, like, a big event. And so that's a major reason why they don't deal with, like, the prejudices and stuff on a pretty usually on a comics basis. Now, on the other hand, when they do have these crossovers, it reminds you that there's still mutants in this universe. And so it kind of takes your story like, hey, if there's mutants in this universe, why aren't they doing anything? Why aren't they on the street protesting? Why aren't they part of some civil rights organization?
Yeah. Which does remind me real quick. How much does the X-Men actually do for mutant kind? Like, Oh. So what do you think about that real quick? Like, how much do they actually do? I mean, and if they don't do much, or if you consider them not to do much, should other superheroes just be like, if they're not doing much, well, should we do much, or should they be trying to force that more? If you think they do much, what do they do?
Alright, I think they do give them a place to train and hone their powers so they don't harm other people. I think they do that well. For the most part. Like, I think they get a lot of mutants that would otherwise go out of control or be institutionalized, and they give them a place to train and hone their powers so they don't harm other people unintentionally. Now, I know, like, the X-Men, like, the whole idea of the X-Men, the action part of them, like the superhero part, is that if they do things like save the world and stuff, they can become heroes to regular people and hopefully stop the prejudice. Kind of like this is coincidentally like a Jackie Robinson, with the movie coming out on Jackie Robinson Day. Like if you do heroic things, then people will forget your prejudice, and so I'm not sure how successful they are, because I think when there's bad things going on, people aren't like, oh, let's go find the X-Men. Let's go find the Avengers.
Yeah, and X-Men, they're kind of like, hey, we saved the world a fair amount of times. What about us?
Now, there's a lot of weird stuff going on recently that I just don't want to get into.
Yep.
Yeah, with the Phoenix stuff and
the
Avengers versus X-Men
crossover. Yeah.
And I think that deals with it some,
but in a possibly horrible way.
Do you think the X-Men have actually helped?
No. Not in the grand scheme of things. I agree with the assertion that they do give people a place to go to train and own their powers, and as you put it, so that they don't harm people in an unintentional way. But I think that has backfired in some other big ways. So I think even though they do that one good thing, I think, and even though they're having times where they save the world and even the universe, there's so much bickering and so much in and out of people that are either villains or will become villains that it kind of counteracts a lot of the good that they do because they are so much infighting. And then you gotta figure that when a lot of people like Magneto or other mutants threaten the world, a lot of the good that they do is just trash. So in some cases, it's just like, yeah, they do good, and then it's taken away because someone else fucked it up. And then some other cases, I'm like, no, they don't.
All right. Well, let's get into the issue of like, do you think like, okay, well, there's two main sides, I would say, in the typical X-Men lore.
Yeah.
And one side is usually the peaceful side, like we should work within the system to change how the world views us, which is typically been associated with Xavier. And there's the other side, which is associated with Magneto, which is, hey, the system is corrupted, and we need to fight outside the system to change it for a better place for mutants. Because humans will never see mutants as equals or as just fellow humans. And that's that goes back to the old Martin Luther King, Malcolm X stuff. And the leaders of both these sides have changed over the years.
Yeah.
Kind of like I think they're actually being led by Wolverine and Cyclops respectively right now. But the idea remains the two sides remain the same kind of.
Yeah.
Do you think either of these sides is better?
Honestly, no. I'll explain why, at least from my point. Alright, for Xavier's side, it sounds all good, right? It really does, but at the same time, just like the way that most of them work within the system, it doesn't work. Now, Xavier, for the longest time, he didn't outright say he was a mutant. He doesn't have something that identifies him as a mutant to most people. He looks like a normal person. So it's easy for him to train these people and tell them, yeah, we should change on the inside. It's like, dude, it's easy for you to say that when you can blend in. But what are you actually doing that does that? I think it'd be more effective if it was someone maybe more outlandish or someone who at least said they were a mutant. It's like, no one's going to believe that you're really proud to be a mutant if you don't say it, if you don't let people know. And then I feel like Magneto's side, it takes, of course, that other extreme. I think they're both wrong. Because, while I get his point, and I get that, yes, there's a possibility that it will never fully integrate. I think a better job could be done than it's being done. And I think if you, like you mentioned, mutants doing the heroic things and being noted more for that, I think if people paid more attention to that really would help. And they don't have to fully, segregate. That's not helping the situation. It's just fucking making it worse. So I think, on both sides, they're wrong. And they're going about it horribly. And as the sides continue over years, I think it's just handled, more ridiculously. On Cyclops' side, he's trying to go the extreme route, and it's just that doesn't suit Cyclops. I think that would suit Wolverine better, and he'd still be wrong. And Wolverine's going that other route despite killing a shit ton of people over the years. It's like, you don't really have a leg to stand on. You don't. And Cyclops probably would have been better suited for that, but he'd still be wrong. So, I would like to see another side that represents it better. What about you? What do you think?
Well, the thing is, I think a lot of people are sympathetic to Magneto because they imagine if they were discriminated against by the system and by society as a whole, you'd react pretty angrily to that. And so there's a lot of people that's sympathetic to that view, where it's kind of like, if the world hates me, well, then I hate the world. I think the problem with Magneto is he doesn't recognize that once you've that the only way for mutants to survive is to actually extend a hand to humanity. Because you can't live separate. They've tried that with different experiments, with Utopia.
Yeah.
Where they had essentially an island where the mutants were together, and there was also Magneto had his own island,
Genosha.
So
there was Utopia, there was Genosha, there was Asteroid M. All failed.
All failed experiments. Now, the thing I think the problem with Charles Xavier is he tends not to. He tends to he's too passive. He doesn't confront the system to change enough, and it's kind of like, oh, I'm afraid that if I challenge people, I'm not talking about even like violent. I'm afraid if I challenge people to change too much, they'll react badly. Well, if they react badly, well, too bad. You have to keep challenging them until they change. And I think that's the problem with the X-Men. I think the thing is, like, I guess they're starting to address this now in the comics with the combined X-Men Avengers unit, but like, you can't be set. He's also separating. He has a team of all mutants, really.
Yeah, that's true.
He needs to show like an integrated team, like, you know, it was. I think they were both in the wrong in a way. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, you're sympathetic to both sides in a way, but then you're like,
they're both wrong because it is kind of comes down to the execution thing.
They both. It's at the end of the day, it's all execution.
That is such a big part of the battle, really. And I mean, I like the point that you bring up about it being an all mutant team. Because I think it would mean much more if he was like more confrontational about these things, and if he had a mutant team. Sorry, if he had a team that was like humans and mutants working together, saying, "Hey, I want to change this." Like, "Hey, I'm a mutant and I want to change this. I want to work more with humans. I want them to accept us more, and we'll try to accept them more." And then you have the humans saying, "I'm working with mutants. I want to work with mutants. They're the same as us, really, and I want this to change." It would be far more effective to see people working together with that. Because really, what he is a passive Magneto at the end of the day. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he's a passive Magneto on, like, a different side of the scale. They're the same, really, like, you know, two sides of a coin. You know, one being his, one being tails. Yeah.
Alright, that's enough mutant stuff for now.
Yep.
Right, do you have anything else to say, or?
Not really. I mean, we both went about it in different ways, but just said that, well, they're both wrong. So not really.
Okay, that's one we agree on.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess let's get back to superheroes in general. Well, this is a question that's often brought up in superhero comics and movies. Do superheroes make things worse? Like, do they actually create the villains, supervillains? Do they escalate things to like world-destroying levels? It's kind of like at the end of Batman Begins when Gordon is on the rooftop with Batman, and he's like, "We get bulletproof vests. They get machine guns. We get Batman, and they get supervillains." Those aren't even close to the exact words, but that was the gist of it. And so it's like, what do you think about this whole escalation theory?
Ooh, this is tricky. I mean, you already know where I pretty much stand on that, and I would like to say I stand on the side of they make things a hella worse. They escalated to just awful levels. But I'd like to bring up, even though yes, I acknowledge that there's a possibility that supervillains would have just happened anyway in some of these stories, because, you know, there's some people with just natural powers anyway. I would say for the most part, from what I've seen, like, I feel like heroes really do make it worse, and they do create the villains that they do, and they help perpetuate the system. Like, for instance, I feel like, and Batman is probably the best example, in my opinion. Like, he's responsible for a lot of the villains. He essentially created them. And at first, you know, when he's cleaning up crime on a, you know, a small scale, like more, you know, human, like everyday people, I feel like he was incredibly effective. And then the supervillains started showing up. Batman needed a challenge. You know, that's how these things come into play. But within the story, it's just like, you know, they showed up. They needed to get better because he was doing a good job. And then he created more supervillains. And then he was the only one who could really stop them in a lot of these situations. So he ends up necessitating his own existence and perpetuating the cycle. And I feel like that eventually made Gotham way worse than when it started, even if he was making it better at some point or another. And I feel like, and that's the case with a lot of heroes. Not exactly, but I mean that the way that sort of runs, and that was just like my best example I could think of for that.
Well, one thing I find kind of interesting is if you watch a superhero origin story, there's no like supervillain origin story before the super. There's no like super origin story where the supervillain's already born. There's like petty criminals and stuff, but usually the supervillain, his origin's like tied in after or during the creation of the superhero, and I find that really interesting.
Sure.
Because there's no like universe where like, can you think of a universe where like movies, films, or comics where it's like where it's like a regular guy and like the villain's already there and he's terrorizing the world and then the superhero's born? I'm sure someone will come up with one. Like we'll think of one later, but
I mean, like, but right now, on top of my head, no.
I think it says a lot that we can't come up with one off the top of our head, and that like it's like for a supervillain to exist, a superhero needs to exist.
Pretty much. I feel like that's just a side effect of our world. Because the way we tell like a lot of these sort of like stories is we always have the hero. I mean, the basic setup goes, you have the protagonist and the antagonist. The protagonist need not be a hero, but that's the way we usually go. Because, that's just how we evolve, and most people think, oh yeah, everyone wants to see the hero win. I mean, frankly, I get sick of that from time to time. I'd much rather see the villain win, or at least see more about how the villain develop. Because while in most of the cases the villain they are thought of like, to counter the superhero, or they're thought of as a result of the superhero, you do get curious about how they got to where they are. Or, there might be something interesting about them that you want to know more. And you like to see how they exist outside of that superhero, as opposed to, oh, they're just here because the superhero needed something to confront.
Well, it's just I just find it interesting because it's not like the superhero isn't born out of the need to stop the supervillain.
No,
although later,
it
becomes like, oh, why do we need Batman? Oh, to stop Joker and Poison Ivy and all that stuff. But that's not why Batman became Batman.
Yeah, that's true.
But that's kind of like what the need became. And like, it's like, why do we need Superman? Oh, to stop, Apocalypse and Lex Luthor wasn't supervillain until Superman showed up, really. I mean, he was just evil business guy, really.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I guess if you're taking a more realistic thing, a lot of these villains, the chances are they would have showed up at some point, just statistically.
Yeah, but
and so you'd want superheroes just because it's eventually going to happen.
Yes, but the way a lot of the stories are set up, that they make it so that's not the case. It's like, yeah, of course they were going to, but it's like oh, the hero came to existence, so now there's a villain, and I think that hurts the superheroes' case in a lot of these things. And like there are a few stories where the hero might rise up against some villain, but you're still not really given that whole seeing how the villain got to that point in most of these cases. It's like, oh yeah, it's just because they needed motivation. It's a big problem. Overall, given how things are in current comics with like the big two, Marvel and DC, just dominating everything, I think that heroes do make their universes worse. And then you do have the time, and it's like just an increasing thing. Like Marvel has been doing it in the last couple of years, and DC is getting worse with it now. This whole notion of heroes fighting heroes. When heroes say that they're supposed to protect people, they're supposed to be doing this and that. They're so busy fighting each other. How the fuck can they do that? And they usually make it worse because these are superpowered beings with powers that affect the whole goddamn world. And if they're going to war, people get fucked. So it's like you're making it worse. And who is fighting the villains while the heroes are fighting each other?
I don't know. Yeah, I've been disappointed with comics in that respect recently.
Yeah.
I think the whole, I guess in truth, superheroes superheroes like in reality are a bad idea because it in itself, it's in some ways a democratic idea that anybody can take control of their life and their world. but it's in many ways, in other ways, it's undemocratic and unfair because the fate of the world is in the hands of like the Justice League, like a few people.
And they're flawed. They're people just like everyone else is. And that's a problem. They're people like everyone else is with superpowers.
I know, man. It's injustice. Like, they're gods among us. I mean,
Dun dun dun.
Could that be
shameless plug? And yeah, probably.
We're not getting money for that, though.
Shameless unplayed plug. But you don't have necessarily money for a plug. You know, you can plug an idea.
We're gonna retroactively get money for that. Like, we're gonna send a letter. We're gonna get money for that. We're getting money for that.
Pay us, bitches. Pay us.
So, we've got the, I think that's like all the questions I have right now. We may get we may create a part 2 later. Or round 2 of this little, hey, we agreed on a lot of this stuff. I'm not sure if it's debate if we agree on a lot of it.
It really isn't. I mean, we debated one major thing, and it wasn't horribly confrontational. We went about it in a pretty mature manner and actually came to a consensus at the end, which is good for a lot of debate, but that was about it. Most of the stuff we're just like, this is why this is wrong, or, we went different directions, but we were saying the same thing. Like, we were like, okay, this is why I think this point is true, and this is why I think this point is true, and it's like, oh, yeah, this is the same thing. Wow, they're idiots!
Yeah.
But those people in comics.
Yeah, but I guess like one major point we want to say about the superhero ethics debate is like a lot of the decisions that like heroes and stuff make in comics and films and movies, that's the decision of like the creators, and it's not like does not reflect necessarily on the principle of the superhero itself, but it reflects more on the messages of the story that the creator wants to put out.
Which is really unfortunate because it affects characters in some really horrible ways. Because instead of worrying about creating this rich, vast universe where morality is constantly, in flux, they created a shallow world in some respects in a lot of these cases because some editor, usually someone who hasn't even bothered to read up on the material, thought that, oh, if we do this, it's more marketable, we'll make more money. It's like after a while, you're gonna lose money because your shit sucks, way to go.
Okay. And I guess that's it for this round. We may get to it later, but I'm Cameron.
And I'm Jordan.
Let's crash the mood. Later.
Yeah.